Welcome to Strength in the Numbers. My name is Andrew Codd, accountant, author, and commercial finance entrepreneur, and it's my job each week to bring you leaders in finance and business and deconstruct with them their real stories, insights, and hard-won lessons into practical advice on the key strengths and qualities you need to remain relevant in accounting and finance today, as well as the steps you can begin to take to elevate the impact you make to have a fun, successful, and rewarding career in accounting and finance. Now let's go over to the show.
It's okay to not be okay type thing, or to have, the fact that we are working at home and don't feel that everything's got to be all perfect.
Hi everyone, and you've just heard from Javed Bobat, who's been serving the finance and accounting community for the last 18 years as a recruiter and very recently founded Fide Careers, the UK's very first ethical, industry-first recruitment agency. With the mission to raise awareness, education, and positive change around mental health in the workplace for all finance professionals. And on today's show, Javed and myself, we go and deconstruct why the finance profession is getting a lot more attention, investment, and challenges compared to maybe, say, 10 years ago. We also discuss some ideas to maintain mental wellness in these challenging times of lockdown, how we can increase leaders' acknowledgement of the mental wellness of their team members, and how to get the best talent on board that are already future ready for the technologies our profession is using, and also the challenges employers will have in retaining them. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, you can check out our timestamp show notes, key quotes, resources, and ways to connect with Javed and more at sitnshow.com. And you can also recommend the show to your friends and colleagues who can subscribe on all the major platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Spotify. And we really appreciate you investing your time with us today. So without further ado, over to Javed and the show. Javed, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Nice to have my podcast debut with you.
It's our pleasure, Javed. And you know what's really interesting, and our audience probably don't know this, is that normally, when we get guest mentors on the show, they tend to be recommended by previous guest mentors. Well, in your instance, you got recommended by two guest mentors previously, as opposed to just normally the one. So, had to get you on the show, and some of our audience, in order to get more familiar with you, will probably like to know more about your journey. But it's not your traditional finance and accounting journey. You've come at it from the other side. You've been serving the accounting and finance profession in your journey.
Yeah, sure. So my background is, when you say serving accountants and finance professionals, so mine's from the dreaded I'm a recruiter angle. So for my sins, I've been doing finance recruitment for over 17 years. I left my last employed role around 18 months ago, and that was because of the onset of burnout and stress and depression. Took some time out in order to focus on my own well-being, and then I guess reinvent myself as a better version of me. So now, fast forward the last few months, I've launched two companies. So I've launched a community interest company that supports the mental health and well-being of all accountants and finance professionals and teams, and I fund that through my first business, which is a ethical recruitment model which combines recruitment with mental health and well-being. So it's really trying to drive the awareness and education, and also investment in mental health and well-being for a function which I believe has always been under the most scrutiny and pressure within a business. But I feel that, especially in the last few years, and even more so in the last few weeks, that has ramped up even more. So really want to ensure that I not just use my experiences, but my passion for mental health and well-being to support a sector that I know a lot about, albeit from a different angle as a recruiter, but having spoken to, met, and have got many contacts and now friends that are working in accounting and finance.
Look, I suppose some of our audience will be relieved to hear that someone else appreciates that they're under a lot of scrutiny in our finance world within the organisations and profession we operate in. And some of us are sort of feeling, I suppose, burnt out and put under a lot of pressure. That sort of constant quest to do more with less not even the same, but with less, you know. And I suppose having that sort of outside in perspective in terms of serving the community. I mean, what are others in our profession saying to you, or what are good things that they're doing about it?
So immediately, if I take the conversations over the last few weeks, there is a definite feeling of being even more overworked, being even more overwhelmed, and under even more scrutiny than before. And I start all those phrases with even more because I've seen it over the years that is a finance function is the heartbeat of a company, and it has increased in its importance to an organization probably since the financial crash around 2008 and 9. And you've seen that sort of influence and importance, which has then translated into the investment made in finance teams and also then how many that you see at board level at CEO that are qualified accountants. So that is not in question. I think where the last sort of few weeks and in particular is everyone's been thrust in a situation where they've never experienced as individuals, and then everyone's relying on them to have all the answers. So
Mm-hmm.
every from MDs, CEOs to budget holders and stakeholders internally, externally, are almost feel for some of them feel like they're being peppered with questions, queries, and expected to have all the answers, and they're sat there doing their absolute best to navigate through all these waters and have the answers for them, and simultaneously supporting their own finance team, who they physically can't see apart from in a Zoom or conference call, who they can't just quickly go grab a coffee with right now.
Mm-hmm.
So a number of new challenges that are emerging, and it ultimately feels like the both the success and failure of a company is riding on them, but also the well-being of their team and then wider employees is almost weighing heavy on their shoulders. So yeah, very very testing times for the senior finance contacts that I'm speaking to in the last few weeks in particular.
It's really interesting, Javed. Like I'm sort of smiling here and thinking about it like that. This is a really fantastic opportunity for our training as a profession to come to the fore, to help organizations through this massive period of chaos and uncertainty, make sense of it all. Yet we're trying to grapple with, you know, learning new tools ourselves, new ways of working, doing more with less. And you know, there's a huge price to pay with that. In you know that we may not notice is that mental well-being. And those stories you share resonate with what I'm hearing when talking to folks around the world. So not just in any particular country, it's a worldwide challenge we have. How I you know like in terms of those that are doing this in the right way and sustainable way, you know, particularly from the mental well-being perspective, how are they best managing that? What could our audience you know start to be doing to better manage that mental well-being and reduce the price they have to pay?
Yeah, in the immediate position that we all find ourselves in, the ones who are trying their best, and I say trying their best because we are in uncharted waters, is I guess being a lot more accommodating around not keeping up appearances, for example, on Zoom calls. And what I mean by that is, if a child is screaming in the background or anything like that, that I think I heard a couple of stories where there was a CFOs and FDs had their sort of little boy or little girl momentarily coming onto the call just to give it a bit more of a human side, and let's not, we're all sort of in this together, and trying to just sort of create that sense of, look, it's okay to not be okay type thing, or to have, the fact that we are working at home and don't feel that everything's got to be all perfect. I think the other one that's really important is there's no classroom based well-being programs can go on at the moment. So it's then moving to understanding what is available digitally. So, in terms of apps and online pieces. So really investing in offering premium subscriptions to app, which they may not have done previously, through to at least showing a commitment that they want to invest in their well-being by asking their team to, in terms of what's important for them. So trying to empower the team to, like, you as a team, what would motivate you, what would you benefit from, rather than just introducing something where you don't know what the level of engagement or buying is going to be.
Yeah, no, that's very key. Because I think the comment I can hear my audience now say like, yeah, but we're all really busy. Where are we going to get the time to do all of this? But I think to your point, it's really checking in to see what people would value and having that honest conversation. Because there's no point trying to do this well-being training or setting up loads of virtual meetings if no one's going to engage with them, because they see that it's more important staying busy rather than down the line when they're going to be completely burnt out from all of this, and not being aware or at least acknowledging that it's okay not to be okay at the moment.
Yeah.
And like, how do we leaders and team members and colleagues make sure that the rest of the team know that it's okay to do that, to engage in the right way, and to invest in not being as busy sometimes?
I'll be honest, there are a lot of companies and teams that are still adjusting and adapting. So whilst I can, for every example I can give of one or two teams and that are trying to do the right thing, but there are many others that aren't. Where I think because of we've been forced into this situation of lockdown and social distancing, I think the ones who can adjust and adapt and be a lot more supportive of their employees, and for example, not looking at a working period of being 8:30 or 9 till 5, but could you look at a more output-based approach and go, okay, well, let's say you're up from 7:30 in the morning to say 10:30 at night. Providing your work is done in that time, does it really matter that you're not logged in during normal office hours? And going from more output-based rather than say, oh, well, you must be logged on at this time, because that is something that is still happening amongst many finance teams, where they are being asked to log in at a certain time and then leave at a certain time. But there's so much more opportunity where you've got enough hours in the day. But my working day could be anything between 7 in the morning, 11 at night. I don't work all those hours, but I then put in the work, and then at the end of the day, I know I've done the work that I wanted to. So is there looking at more output based rather than just specifically the hours at work?
I think that's a really good point, Javed. And again, maybe that's where the time needs to be invested, is looking at the outcomes and the output of being delivered as opposed to the time. And I think that's probably where leaders need to maybe step in a bit more, is to say, look, there's a lot on, there's a lot to do. It's very chaotic, it's manic. What is but we can't have our team members burning each other, burning the candle at both ends. There's a reasonable level of output to be expected, to keep these people healthy in our teams, so they can bring them their best selves to work and so on. So no, I really appreciate you calling that one now. But I suppose there's also we've got to deal with the immediate time, but then looking ahead to the future, there's a lot of other changes in technology. We're benefiting from some of them now, the virtual work and so on. But like, how do we keep remaining relevant over the next 5 to 10 years in your mind?
So if you take the area we've already discussed around what can a finance function get a better balance between with that sort of flexible working piece and using technology for good in the sense of remote working, because you get technology companies doing this really well. So if you ever go on the website of various tech companies, they'll put we're hiring remote working available. So basically they can have a workforce that is spread globally. Now, not to say that a finance function can go completely that way to what these technology and SaaS companies have done, but that's one area to really explore. That do you need to have everyone within a physical sort of office, or can some roles be done remotely? That could be a question that can be posed for finance functions moving forward, in light of looking at how they have been managed and coped in this current time where it's been enforced. I think for other things 5-10 years down the line, there's a huge transition on and development that's happening already around the value of big data, robotics and automation, and what then that looks like for a finance function. But how can finance teams embrace that to their advantage, and specifically looking at providing sort of better insights to then make better and more informed strategic decisions. And also then everyone talks about in finance function how let's improve systems and processes to try and save us time, try and save us money. This can have an even bigger effect, not just on that, but also then moving forward, allow for potentially better forecasting and planning. I mean, there's a lot that's going on, for example, within the payment processing area around the automation and how that could help companies and finance teams forecast much more accurately in the future, because from previous behaviors how when a particular client or customer does pay, and then that then allows you
Yeah.
to better forecast better. So, and again, there'll be experts on this that I'm sure you can get on the show that really deep dive into it. This is me coming from a mere mortal who has some understanding of it, but knows that this is where a finance function should be really sort of investing their time and knowing how much it could benefit them. But yeah, you can see that big four firms are embracing and investing a lot in big data and robotics and automation. You've got teams now that are set up within big four that are specifically looking at this and AI and how that could benefit their sort of clients and the companies they serve and work.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, Javed. I suppose I was really encouraged by your point that you sort of said about finance being the heartbeat of an organization. I'm wondering when it comes to those things as well. Sometimes or the more could be the more forward looking eyes or ears or brains in that regard. Whereas traditionally we've probably been accused maybe a bit more backward looking, just reporting transactions that have already happened, now sort of looking ahead to the future. So it's a very interesting shift in orientation, and just with an eye on the future as well. I want to tie in the well-being point we've been making. Is it an aspect of appreciating that technology, the trends and developments out there, as well as the importance of well-being? Is that really how you get the best talent on board into the future?
Absolutely. I think Deloitte did a report and they said that by 2025, there'll be well over two-thirds of the workforce that will be millennials. Now, the workforce would therefore include millennials that have then chosen a career within accounting. So, and understanding what that particular generation want and is more important to them, and that they will not, the things they won't be interested in are old ways of working in terms of traditional office hours. So we've discussed how that it needs to evolve and change. But looking at companies that invest in both the well-being of their team, but also have a higher level of corporate social responsibility, there's going to be a huge retention challenge for any employers and any FD, CFOs and finance teams who don't embrace the importance of investing in the well-being of their team and be shown to be a responsible company and organization. And I appreciate CSR, corporate social responsibility, has been around for quite some time, but there is a lot of cynicism even on that at the moment, where is it you really believe in it or is it a tick box exercise? And even when it comes to the cynicism amongst current generation of accountants and finance professionals, where when they see mental health and well-being pieces being implemented at the moment, some are still very cynical. And I think part of the reason where the cynicism comes is there isn't enough empowerment of speaking to their own employees and their own teams of what they want, as opposed to just mandating something from head office and say, yeah, this is what we're doing, and expecting everyone to be happy in the uptake.
Yeah, I feel it's like sort of those sort of online programs or these sort of schedule in this current day virtual meetings around well-being and stuff like that. It's not very personal, I guess, and that's probably what you're
Yeah,
pointing at. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And there's also, one of the things I've always said when I speak to companies, I feel like employees and therefore finance teams will have a role to play to support mental health and well-being, but there has to be a line drawn probably a little bit sooner than what employees would be thinking. And what I mean by that is that you can't squarely put the responsibility on the employee, because an employee can put all manner of measures in place, let's say over the coming months, weeks, months, and years. However, there'll always be that element of doubt amongst an employee that why are you doing this? Is it a tick box exercise, or do you genuinely care about us? And one of the ways around that is almost taking the pressure and onus away from employees and empowering their employees with choice, but also choice that involves that they can then access something externally where, or the employer, sorry, doesn't know that they're accessing it. So, for example, I'm And this is something, a medium term project of mine. So I'm looking to work with an organisation who I've signed sort of an agreement in principle, but to develop a online support network which is moderated by clinical professions. So not just a social network group, but basically it's an anonymous online support network which I want to invest in for accountants and finance professionals. And the reason why that I feel would work is, rather than saying to an employer that the onus completely lies on you, that anyone, whether that's sort of you or another finance professional, can access it at any time and no one knows it's you that's on the platform. So it retains that level of anonymity, because there is still the reluctance of an employee to go to an employer to say that they may be struggling until until they really, really need to. And by that time, there's been months of stress and anxiety, absenteeism, presenteeism, reduced in productivity that's already happened. Whereas have an external online network where you can speak to fellow peers who can support each other. No one knows who each other is if you log in, but no one would know where you are in terms of location. So it's trying to look at an industry investment, I think, will go a long way in raising the profile of finance sector and the fact that they are doing something about it, but looking at it as a collective thing rather than, oh well, we're employer X and we're doing this, and not having a complete one-upmanship over one or the other.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic initiative, Javid, and look forward to when that's up and running, sharing the links with our audience.
Yeah,
But I do feel there is that stigma attached with people sort of asking for help, as if it's something that oh, you're just not capable, or you just can't handle the pressure.
yeah,
Um, when in actual fact doing so is the right thing by the business, because and again this goes for leaders and employees, is those hidden costs, as you said, around absenteeism, presenteeism as well, the impacts on productivity, the distraction someone's feeling, not being able to bring their best selves to work. It all adds up, but we just don't necessarily record it immediately in the income statement. It's more of a medium to longer term cost, and so no, I really appreciate what you're doing in this space.
yeah.
um, now that said, you've been giving us some great food for thought, ideas and advice. What's been the best bit of advice you've ever received?
One of the ones, trying to think who I mentioned it, it's been mentioned at least a couple of people, is always continuously adjust and adapt to the needs of either the situation, the environment, the time period that you're in. And one of the ways I've always implemented that within a work environment is, if I look at my management style as it's going to be now that I've launched my business, and when I grow over the next sort of 2, 3, 4 years, to even what it was up to 2 years ago, it's going to be very different. And it's going to be very different because it's looking at what is going to motivate the next generation of employees, and understanding what's going to make them tick and what's not, but also just not being stuck in a bit of a time warp. I think you see too often managers and leaders who feel like, oh, just because their ways worked a few years ago, that's almost like proven recipe, it will continue to work, and that's not the case. The way I was managed, and when I first started out my career, you couldn't get away with half the things that you could do now. So the ones who can adjust and adapt to the times, the ones who can adjust and adapt to situations. As an add-on to that, I've always had this thing about, if you are sort of managing and coaching and leading and nurturing, that you do offer a very flexible, adjusting and adapting your management styles to the situation. So on the one hand, you may nurture and encourage an individual, but it could be a certain in another situation with the same person, you might just turn the screw a little bit. But just having that ability to adjust and adapt is really, really important. And it's what made me sort of successful, especially in my last role, where I had 5 promotions in 6 years and got to the highest level I could below the board. But now I look back and go, okay, well, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the best things of what I did there, but I'm going to do things differently in the next 5, 6 years, because I know what's going to ensure that I'm going to get the best out of my team in the future. And some of the things I did even a few years ago won't fit now.
Yeah, no, I completely get what you're saying, Javid. So no, thanks for sharing that advice.
No
And
problem.
I suppose in terms of resources that you might be able to recommend our audience that they could go check out.
Resources wise, I've been one of these where I've almost a bit of a online grasshoppers. I look for all manner of websites where you get invitations to basically blogs, webinars, etc. And a lot of these are around. You get a lot of the HR related ones that talk about how can you be a future. It's not just about being a finance leader, but how the best leaders are going to adjust and adapt. But it's something I can send over to you sort of afterwards, and maybe you can sort of share to your audience after.
Yeah,
I've got all manner
definitely.
of subscriptions and they all serve something different. But the reason I do it is it's this continuous learning mindset. Just keep the I've got a huge passion to want to continue to learn and continue to evolve, because by doing so you can ensure that you're future proofing your own skill set, you're continuously enhancing your knowledge, and you're not just relying on something that, yes, that has worked for you before, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it'll always continue to work for you.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly, Javed. If our audience wish to continue the conversation, where's the best place to connect with you at?
Yeah, so I've on LinkedIn, because I guess if you're a professional, and especially if you're serving finance professionals, where else would you be? So LinkedIn is the first port of call. I also have two websites where people can come and find out a bit more about what I do on the mental health and wellbeing side, and the community interest company, and on the recruitment side as well, because it is more of an ethical one. So on the community interest company, it's www.fmentalhealth.org. That's F for Freddie. And then the recruitment arm is www.fide.careers.
Awesome, thanks, Javed. I'll make sure those links also go into the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And look, I really appreciate the advice you sort of shared with us today. And before we sort of wrap up, would you have any parting thoughts to share with our audience?
Any finance professionals out there, I think, not just because of what the situation we find ourselves in right now, but this is an opportunity, a huge opportunity to learn a lot more about yourselves. If you're in a position of seniority, to learn more about, even more about your team, and as a general thing, what you're capable of as an individual and as a team, and then using the experiences that we're going through now to, when lockdown is lifted, and go, right, okay, really taking a step back and going, right, as a finance function, what can we take from this sort of unprecedented period and key learnings, and how can we then adjust and adapt and create a finance function that's fit for purpose for the future, basically a better version of finance leader or manager, or a finance professional and a team that is a better version than what you were before. So definitely something to use this opportunity to learn on all those levels, and a huge push to encourage, first and foremost, the mental health and well-being of yourself and then your team members, because ultimately that will ensure that you'll get the best out of your employees, you'll get the best out of yourselves, and ultimately it's about not just learning but engaging and retaining. And I think there's a huge untapped hidden potential of investing in the well-being, both in yourself and your team. And if you do that, there's, we always talk about ROI, in accountant speak, how can we make a difference to the top and bottom line? I think investing in well-being has got a huge part to play in realizing at the moment what I feel is untapped ROI and benefits to both top and bottom line by doing so.
I think that's a great way to end this the show on, Javed. That sort of untapped ROI,
Yeah,
and I think the challenge for us now is to try and make that a bit more tangible and make it more real, and
yeah,
start appearing in the P&L and also on the balance sheet. So look, Javed, really appreciate you coming on the show today and investing with us your time in strengthening the numbers.
absolutely. And thank you for having me.
So there you have it. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to know more about our guests today, their bio, and follow up on the resources mentioned during the show, you can find all the relevant links and more at sitnshow.com. There you'll also be able to get access to earlier shows, read the latest blogs. There's also an opportunity to subscribe to our newsletter which will give you heads up as to when the next show is coming out, latest events, news, and anything that's going to be relevant to help you have a fun, rewarding and successful career in finance and accounting. And just before you go, we really appreciate your feedback. If there's something we can do better on the show, something that's not working, or something you'd like to see, even a guest you'd like for us to invite onto the show, someone who you think might be able to benefit you more and also the rest of our community, please let me know. You can email me. I'm at andrew@sitnshow.com, or feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just drop me a message so I know how you found me and we can connect. And really, it's our community that'll make the show. If we keep engaging and driving each other on, we'll keep on building our strength in the numbers. When all is said and done, if we can do the numbers better and finance better, we'll create more opportunities for ourselves, our friends, our families, our communities and our businesses. So until next time, have a good rest of the week, take care, and let's keep building our strength in the numbers.